Welcome to Wash Talk, the Carwash Podcast. I'm your host, Rich DiPaolo, and joining me today is Brian Mattingly, founder and CEO of Welcomemat. Brian, great to see you, and thanks for taking some time today.
Thanks for having me, Rich.
Absolutely. And on today's episode, wanted to follow up with an article that you actually wrote for our September 2023 issue. Certainly people out there who haven't had a chance to read that article can go to carwash.com and read that article in its entirety in our digital issue archives. But, the topic of the article, Brian, as you know, was how to drive more member, quote unquote, at bats, as you referred it to, and really to get the most out of your membership programs by attracting the right type of customers, right? So in that article, Brian, you basically put customers into two buckets of customer types, right? It was the deal seekers who are, they might be easier to obtain but harder to keep. These are the ones that might be interested in your membership program because of a low price or a low initial price, but as soon as another car wash, maybe down the street, offers a lower price deal or a better deal, they're off to the next car wash. So a lot more difficult to retain. And then the other bucket is what you refer to as the champion members. So these are the ones that see the value in your car wash and appreciate your business for what it is and are less concerned, let's say, with the price or the tier that they're in. So first question I have for you, are deal seekers worth marketing membership to, and why or why not?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and I'm glad you brought kind of these two buckets into play. And I'll start by saying that, any car in the tunnel is a good car in my mind, right? So anytime we can get a car on the property, that's a good thing. One of the things we just see just time and time again is people concerned with churn. And, through our research and the way we operate and study data, we've realized that churn and reduction in churn and attrition starts with finding that right consumer. So, the deal seeker, while it's still a good consumer to many people, the lifetime value of that consumer is definitely going to be shorter. They just are not a loyal consumer or customer. So from our perspective and from the data and the research that we've done over the years that we've been working in the car wash industry, we've realized that if you can find the right customer on the front, then you ultimately and when I say that, I mean someone, we called it champion in the article, but someone who's likely, to be a car wash consumer and see the value in the service, then chances are you're going to have that 18-month or that 24-month or even longer customer in your member base. And so if you want to really grow, that hockey stick growth with your member base, find more people that, can understand and appreciate the value in the service you provide versus really trying to fight through and find, deal seekers is what we call them, but people that really just aren't going to be loyal. So you got to go through a lot of those and you're going to have heavier, attrition and it's just going to be more of a challenge on the staff operationally, of course, and also on the ability to grow the membership. So again, when everybody wants a silver bullet when it comes to churn, and our perspective is use the right targeting on the front end, and that will help mitigate churn.
All right, let's discuss that a little bit further, Brian. Obviously the champion consumer will be the one that spreads the word of mouth and really champions your business onto other folks, right? So when a customer service attendant is out there selling membership on the lot or through signage or marketing through digital means, and certainly want to get to talk to you about that a little bit later in the interview here, because you did mention some nice digital efforts operators can do out there. But when we're training these CSAs to sell membership, how could they best decipher and sell membership to target a champion consumer, let's say, versus a deal seeker?
Yeah, so another good question, Rich. I think that it's probably you don't want to put the burden so much on the attendant, for example, or whoever's voicing that value proposition at the kiosk or the pay station. So I would say you take a step back to the top of the funnel and use the targeting and digital methods to find that right consumer. So those are the people that are pulling up to the kiosk, hearing that value proposition from your attendant. And I love that, we always talk about, oh, well, people are selling membership at my kiosk, and I do have this great sales program and sales training and all these kind of things. And from our perspective, we love the membership model because it's really not a sale. It's simply just the ability to convey a value proposition, because who is, if you take someone who's likely to be a car wash consumer and you say, hey, for less than the cost of 2 washes, you can wash every day this month, who wouldn't, go forward with that concept just because that value proposition is there. So I would say, just 2 things on that. I would say, make sure you educate your team on just being able to convey that value proposition and make it fun and train, and of course gamify it and all those things that great car washes do. Do that, but leave the targeting in your strategy to finding those consumers and putting them in front of your attendants so they can get that conversion and get that long-term consumer. So it's a great question, Rich. It's hard for the attendant to try to decipher, who's going to be a great long-term, customer in our membership and who's not. So, take a step back, work at the top of the funnel, and try to use tools that would bring that, soccer mom or whoever that ideal consumer might be.
You mentioned in the article some digital strategies, and maybe one of the reasons that car wash operators might be hesitant to start a membership program is it might be overwhelming, at first. How am I going to manage this? How am I going to market it? How much does all this cost, right? So I know in your article you mentioned a few digital strategies, and I know an article can only go into so much detail because obviously the word count that I give you, we can only fit so much in print, obviously. But can you go through some of the most effective digital strategies that you've worked with operators on and what the outcomes were, and maybe give us an idea of cost a little bit?
Sure. I'll start with, I'll kind of break this up a little bit. I'll start with kind of more, traditional digital strategies. And so Welcomemat, our company's been around for over a decade and working in the car wash industry. And so what we've done is we've built data models. So we can go into a market and we can take a site, for example, latitude and longitude of a site. We can drop a 1, 2, 3 mile radius, whatever is best for that, whatever suits that operator the best. And then we can overlay a data model on top of that. And so what that data model is looking for is things that, show up for people who are likely to be car wash consumers. Likelihood of pets is a great example, right? People that typically have pets or dogs, for the most part, do need to vacuum their car. And so they're highly likely to be a car wash consumer. Soccer moms is one I always say, and I'll come back to this in a minute, but you get Cheerios in the backseat, dirty cleats, those kind of things. That's a car wash consumer. So when it comes to traditional digital targeting, you're going to want to drop that geofence. We always say, layer the data model in, be strategic, because again, you want to come at the top of the funnel with the right consumer. And then, run campaigns through Google. So people searching car wash near me, or you're found on Google Maps and Google searches and things like that. That's table stakes now. Like, you got to be good at that. A Meta campaign, Meta is extremely good for what we do in the car wash world. So again, overlay that data model. You can kind of move those dials and overlay that data model and find those right consumers through those, 2 major platforms. So that's you got to be good at that to compete nowadays. And it's not as easy. There's a lot of car wash operators and technologies move so fast, you can't blame them, but there's a lot of car wash operators that say, I'm posted on Facebook. I've got that covered on the digital side, but that's not real. Facebook is, organic. That's one thing. And that's posting about your team members or your employees. And then there's ad targeting, which is a whole different platform through the Facebook Meta, console. And that's actually, heavy targeting. So again, relying on a company like ours or somebody else who really lives in this world and has the ability to do data models and code snippets and things like that to find the right consumers is a really important piece. So I'd say that's, a great starting point, really, is kind of fundamental strategies. And that creates a mode of defense too, because obviously we all know that today competition is so great and there's car washes coming in all over the place. So it's almost a defensive play to have that mode out there on the geofence and the digital side to protect you. So I would say, that's kind of your fundamental piece, but more and more what we're seeing today, and I'll give you two additional pieces to this, but I'll start here, is a lot of the great brands in the country right now, great car wash brands, are really diving into the value of the community. So it's like, I can come at this, I can build a great looking tunnel, express, all bright and shiny. And that's great. And that'll give you a little pop to start. But it's the brands that are really diving into the community and getting involved in the schools, getting involved in the sports, getting involved in the things, all community, that are really driving the right consumers. And so I'll give you a great example. So we had one of our clients, a bigger client in the U.S., come to us and say, hey, we wanted to scale fundraising because we know in fundraising that if people can sell, let's just say a lacrosse team can sell car washes instead of cookie dough and wrapping paper, then number one, I'm getting affinity within the school and the sports team. So all the lacrosse parents are seeing me and seeing my brand and, us supporting the community. So that's the affinity of that brand is powerful. I'm also getting that right consumer group. Because again, when you start going back to top of the funnel and you start talking about targeting, it's the soccer moms, soccer dads, lacrosse moms, lacrosse dads, the PTA parents. All those are highly qualified, highly qualified lifetime value consumers. So fundraising brings that component in. So you've got the affinity in the community. You've also got the ability to attract people that are likely to be a member. And just like you said, Rich, earlier, these are people that will give you that referral. They'll give you that word of mouth. So fundraising is just one example of a way to dive into the community and get, that engine going as a new revenue stream, number one, because you're making money while they're selling fundraising, while you're supporting that, but you're also creating this new membership engine that is bringing that right type of consumer in. So I would say, of course, you've got your digital strategies, that are out there that are, again, as I said, kind of table stakes. And then you got really kind of these community-based strategies. And again, bringing a digital component into fundraising. And that's what is out there now. We have something like that. There's other brands that do too, but that allows you to scale that. So those are just a couple of things that we see on the digital side, but I'll just kind of piggyback one other thing, Rich, if you don't mind. So once you start driving in the right members and you start really growing that member base with that right type of consumer, then you want to create perks and things like that, exclusivity for those members, asking them, hey, maybe you stand in the member lane and you hand out a free car wash that you can give as a member perk, and they could, deliver that to, their sister or their husband or their wife or whatever to get a second car, for example, into the membership. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but again, the community one is one that we're really seeing now take off. And again, the better brands are saying, how do I get into the schools? How do I get into, the community little leagues and things like that? Because I want my brand and that affinity to be dialed in there. So a long-winded answer, but I hope that gets you.
Yeah, absolutely. It gave me what I'm looking for and a whole lot more, because I had a few questions that you kind of checked off the box there of answering. So, you mentioned in your article that membership is one at the local level, right? So even a car wash that operates in several states, if they're really going to succeed at membership in each individual car wash, they need to become an expert on what makes each individual community tick. And that could be a heavy lift for somebody who's at the top, just looking to scale number of car washes or scale membership. They really have to understand that it's really a close attention to what drives a community and what resonates in each specific community. So it's a great point there. Another question I had was, in addition to digital efforts that you noted in your article, what are some surefire ways to attract and retain champion members through traditional means? Certainly, you included in your last response sponsoring sports teams or, getting involved in fundraiser events, getting involved with some local teams. Are there any other traditional media ways we can go about attracting these champion members?
Yeah, and I want to back up and hit on one piece of information that you just identified, which was how do you scale across multiple states, for example. And so one of the trends that we have seen, and even the bigger companies that are locking into this community concept, they're hiring maybe community managers. They're really training up their site leaders. So those are kind of those positions that are getting out there in the community and gives you kind of that scalable infrastructure. So you can do it, with multiple sites. So that community manager is one we're starting to see more and more of in the space. Now, moving to that last question you asked on more of the traditional means, one of the cool things that we do and see, we're not the only ones by any means that does this, but we've married digital and traditional into some direct mail. So Direct mail, unfortunately, is getting more and more expensive because postage keeps going up, but it still works extremely well. And, we're able to put data models onto a market, just like we do digitally on direct mail. So we can, dial into a community, find those right attributes and mail, postcards, for example, for a grand opening, out into that community within a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles of that location and invite those consumers in. We often will put a QR code on there, make it a digital component. So we capture name, email, and mobile. So you always want to, at the car wash level, capture as much data as you possibly can so you can communicate one-on-one. And then we have the ability to take that, consumer who came in off a postcard, like that offline technology, bring them online and then retarget them through digital means for membership, opportunities. So there's some ways to blend the traditional with the digital. There's also some, a lot of community like bulletin boards. There's some community social media, platforms that allow you to really get your brand into neighborhoods. And that's really important because you may identify certain neighborhoods that produce members for you, and birds of a feather tend to flock together. So if you have a good lot of members coming from one neighborhood, you should probably be talking to everybody in that neighborhood because they're probably similar people. So running social campaigns on platforms that deal with neighborhoods can be really powerful as well. So back to your point, traditional direct mail is still a thing. Can you marry it with technology? Yes. We have a client, I love this concept, who happens to have one location next to a big grocery store chain. And so that's kind of the anchor where one of his sites sits. And he called me and he said, well, I want to put one of your QR codes with that electronic, technology on the back of a grocery store receipt. I said, well, who does the grocery store receipts anymore? And he said, let's give it a go. So we put a QR code on the back of a grocery store receipt. Consumers can scan it, put in their data and get a car wash. And it's one of the great funnels for this guy now, so that's taking a more traditional platform that you thought kind of was dead technology, in injecting some, modern technology so you can take them into the digital world and then converting on that. And one of the things at Welcomemat, we see this a lot, we're able to track through point of sale, like attribution. So what creates the most members? And of course, digital platforms like Google and Meta are huge. We see fundraising is, really big. We still see direct mail as a thing. And a lot of the brands still do, radio and billboards. It's really hard to track that kind of stuff. But when you're doing a grand opening, some people like to really target those more traditional means as well. So I hope that answers your question, Rich.
Yeah, for sure. Certainly an interesting point with the grocery receipt. And that's why it's important for operators to partner with companies that are involved in this business so they can see what other operators are doing that's successful, specific to car washing, right? So I'll let you get out of here with this last question here, Brian. It's a two-parter that I have, but what are the best ways if I have a membership program that's not meeting my expectations? What are the best ways to maybe attract members from another car wash that might be doing better with membership? And what, I guess as a follow-up, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see operators make when it comes to membership that our listeners can avoid here moving forward?
All right. So there's a lot of good questions within that. Rich, I'll start with the defensive, right? Or offensive, I should say. How do you, when you have competition coming in, you see a neighborhood car wash is driving major membership and you're like, how do I, deal with that? We have a lot of operators that do some pretty interesting things. One is you drop a geofence like nearby the other location, right? So you're always talking to that consumer who's maybe that person. So we see that oftentimes on a grand opening when if you have an existing location, you see a new one being built. We have operators that try to get 8 weeks, 9 weeks ahead of that opening, drop postcards all around that up and coming location. So they're getting kind of playing some offense, getting them in their member base before they could potentially be a member somewhere else. So we see there's a lot of tags. I could spend the next 30 minutes telling you some of the things I see in this competitive landscape we're in. But those are just a couple of the things you might see. But moving into conversion and how do I increase member base and that kind of thing. Well, of course, as the article said, it all starts with getting cars on the property, right? So you've got to have the right targeting mechanisms. It's a marketing game. There's no doubt about it. So you've got to have the right mechanisms to get cars on the property. But I think one of the best things I see operators do when it comes to growing membership and really increasing that conversion percentage, it's gamifying, the ecosystem that the customer service or the attendants live in, right? So, I have seen things from, car wash operators that have badges they put on jackets. So if you sell the most, or I shouldn't say sell, but if you're able to get people to sign up for the most memberships in a week, you get a badge. Or, I've seen another where they have a big chart on the wall. They're always keeping score and making it fun, like a baseball concept. So, gamifying and making it engaging for the attendants and the people actually conveying the value proposition on the front, those are the winners. They make it fun. They make it not a sales thing, because the minute you say, hey, I need you to go out and sell membership, 9 people at your organization run to the door because they don't want to sell anything. You maybe have one person who can do that. But if you say, hey, look, we're just going to sit out there and just tell people what this means and why it's important for them, and this is a real value for them, then everybody comes to the table. So I think, if you gamify that, well, again, backing up, starting with the top of the funnel, get cars there, gamify, educate, train your team, make it fun. They'll get the conversion as long as they can just really get that value proposition out. So that would be kind of that second issue. I think your last question dealt with what are the mistakes people make. And I'll just tell you some results. I don't know if it's a mistake, it's just a learning really. But if you try, a lot of people that are opening locations are trying to come in with these penny and dollar memberships, and that the attrition on those things we've just seen is out. It's just outrageous. We had one location up in Ohio who ran, I think it was $1 first month, for the whole 30, 45 days of their first month of being open, and they lost like 50 to 70% of those people when recharge date came. And the reason being, and this is an important point because we actually do a lot of work around this, is if your promotion is so far from the delta so big between the promotion and the recharge number, you're going to have fallout. So I would say if you're going to run a promotion, which I think is fantastic, just don't make the delta so great, right? So make it a good promotion, a $12.99, a $17.99. So when I get recharged at $40 or whatever that number is, I don't fall out of my chair and try to, get out of this thing. So I think that's probably one of the bigger things, because we coach our clients all the time, like tighten that delta up and your churn will go down. Promotions are great, but don't go too big on the spread. So hopefully that's a learning that we can share.
Yeah, and the pricing is so important in these things, and that's what I hear from other people I've interviewed on this topic is don't change the pricing. Don't let it fluctuate so much. Stick with a price and maybe set up tiers where, customers can go for a higher package or a lower package of unlimited that they would like, and stick with it. Don't change it too much. Well, I know I certainly enjoyed reading the article, Brian, that you wrote for us. I can't thank you enough for contributing to professional car washing and detailing. I certainly like the theme and the headline of driving more at bats. Any relation to the Yankee great Don Mattingly, or is that just a coincidence?
No, I've claimed it. I can't prove it, but I've claimed it. Great Don Mattingly. I get asked a lot, even to this day.
Oh, all right. Well, certainly appreciate you taking some time, Brian, and why don't you give the website out for your company if you'd like to have people learn more about your company.
Yeah, sure. We've got a great team at Welcomemat. Can answer questions, do some discovery. Our website's welcomemat.com.
Perfect. Easy enough. Well, thanks for taking some time, Brian. Great to see you. Look forward to seeing you again in person at the next trade show.
Thanks, Rich. You too. Appreciate it.